Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Granger, and this is Curtain Call, a weekly interview series with powerful women in the arts, presented by FabCollab and Heritage Canada. We're very excited today to have a really special guest joining us. She is definitely a powerful woman in the arts. She's a contemporary story weaver, a slam poet, a musician, performance artist, arts educator, activist. And we're very, very lucky to be able to speak with her today. Her name is Mahlikah Awe, and she'll be joining us in just a moment. We have people joining us every week, different women from around the world to tell us about their experiences, their journeys to becoming artists. And oh, it looks like she can't hear me. That's very strange. Can anyone else hear me? If there's other people watching, can you just let me know if you can hear me? I'm not sure if there's something wrong with my volume or if Mahlikah just isn't able to hear me. Um, hmm. Very. Can you hear me now? Hello? We're doing a little tech test here. Is anyone able to hear me? Hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Okay, great. Somebody can hear me. That's fantastic. All right. Well, I'm just going to start my little spiel again, and hopefully, we'll be here. We'll be seeing Mahlikah very shortly. Perfect. Awesome. So this is Curtain Call. This is a weekly interview series with powerful women in the arts. We speak to people around the world in all different sorts of working in different fields, working in different areas, different practices. And today we're very lucky to be, to be joined. Sounds good. Okay, great. Yeah, we had a little difficulty before, and I think it was on my end. So if Mahlikah, let's see if she rejoins the stream. Our guest today is Mahlikah Awe, and we're very excited to have her here with us today. She's an extremely accomplished artist, musician. Here she comes. Fantastic. She's a slam poet, a musician, performance artist, arts educator, activist. Um, and there she is. Hello. How about, can you hear me now?
You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're very low.
I'm not sure why that is, but I can hear you.
If you can just project, that would be perfect.
I'm speaking at my normal. Uh,
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. It's very can
it could be the connectivity here, or I'm not sure. Can you hear
hmm,
me?
I can hear you, but it's just really, really. Are you using headphones?
No, I don't normally use headphones
I don't know why that
because
would
I'm on my
change
I.
anything. If other, I can hear you like enough. I don't know if other people can hear you. If anyone's watching, are you able to hear Mahlikah? This tech stuff on Facebook Live is always very tricky. Hmm. Oh, okay, great. So people can hear you, so that's great. I can hear you well enough to hear what you're saying, so that's great. Oh, and I
All right,
like your sparkly filter. It's beautiful.
now gotta bring the sparkles.
So why don't I just let me just get started. So as I was saying before, you work in so many different ways within the community as an artist, as a story weaver, slam poet, a musician, performance artist, arts educator, activist. Can you tell me a little bit about your early days and your journey to inhabiting these roles?
Sure. So yeah, for me, like, my childhood was very much an artistic childhood. Like, I was fortunate that I grew up in a household where I was allowed to express myself. So, like, from young, um, I essentially, was able to experiment with, writing and, music and, doing drama plays with my friends. Um, and I had a lot of family members actually who had artistic backgrounds growing up. So I had an uncle who was a musician and a photographer. I had an aunt who was a singer and a model. I had like um, other relatives who were writers and crafters. So they made a lot of things. So a lot of art was just like around me all the time. And so I think that had a lot to do with it. I also think because of the way I was as a kid, it was the way that I was able to express my thoughts, my feelings, um, my passion around things just through creativity. And, you know, I really believe that being creative not only brought me as far as I've come today in what I'm able to do, but also literally saved my life. Like there were so many moments growing up where I could have taken a different path um, that may have led to me not being here. And so I think in those moments, having an outlet to be able to decompress and it was really important growing up. And I think, you know, all of those things like advocacy really started young because when I was coming up, I was bullied. Like a lot of people get bullied in school, but most of my bullies were dudes. Like I really didn't have any bullies who were femmes or whatever. All my bullies were dudes, and a lot of them were white guys. And so I had to learn really young, especially in middle school, number one, how to defend myself, and number two, how to be able to speak out and up against, folks who were, using racial slurs, you know, projecting very sexist, um, you know, heteronormative type attitudes towards my classmates and myself, and really just being able to stand up for myself. And so I think my school life also is a big result of why I'm so passionate about advocacy, about abolition, about equity, diversity, and inclusion because of all of the things I had to go through, especially like from middle school all the way up through post-secondary education. Um, and so, yeah, I think that was really important. Um,
Yeah, it
and
sounds
like
like.
even,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say like in high school, I got really involved in like leadership programming right in grade 9. I was part of Lamb Leaders at Lamoureux CI. And then I started my own intercultural school club. And then I was also like involved in the drama club, of course, and ended up being like student vice president of a student.
Wow.
So, and again, a lot of that was looking at my family. I had like, a lot of positive role modeling. My aunt, actually, Doreen Lewis, rest in power, was actually like the first, I guess, Afro Indigenous mayor and woman mayor, specifically in Canada. Um, you know, and she was the mayor of Annapolis Royal in the 80s. And so just coming from that and having to deal with that was, all those things. I think from a young age, I just wanted to, support my journey of advocacy and leadership, and somehow the arts were always a big part of me being able to express myself. And I want to actually give a big shout out to some of my, high school teachers. I had a few Black high school teachers, no Native, but I had a few Black high school teachers: Mr. Mead, Mr. Tudor, Miss Marcelin, Miss Anthony. These were like my English, my drama teachers, and they really believed in me, uh, and to the point where I remember coming to them with an idea about a Black History Month production. And we ended up doing it for school assembly. And then Mr. Mead actually convinced our principal to allow us to tour that play in our local elementary schools in Scarborough.
Wow.
And nothing like that had really happened before.
That's amazing.
It was like pretty cool. So, all those things just kept me on that path, that road, and just choosing, to continue to develop myself as a young emerging artist through arts camps, and getting mentorship opportunities, as a youth, and
It's
definitely,
really encouraging to hear that you were supported, like that you faced these challenges, but that you were supported by these different people and these different programs and by your family.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say my whole family, but I'd say definitely there were family members who really believed in my gift, and really encouraged me, from a young age to just like keep telling my stories. And really it's the storytelling part, because my grandparents were my first storytellers. And so just keep telling my stories in whatever medium that is. And I really found my voice when I was, delivering speeches and speech arts in middle school, or doing my valedictorian address in grade 8. And for my high school grad, I was the valedictorian. And just all those voices in writing
Mhm.
articles, for the school newspaper. Um, all of those kinds of avenues of speaking and being present, um, in a time when you, at the same time, you wanted to hide underneath your covers because there was a lot of, backlash around race and gender,
Mhm.
and just being different, whatever that means, compared to, I guess, like mainstream or whatever. Um, but definitely, yeah, that's kind of how I think all those things came together, all those experiences.
So, like, just thinking about all of that is like facing challenges, but still being able to find your voice and finding a way to like hold space is and finding your identity and being in touch with your own identity. As an Afro Indigenous femme, how have you come to find power through artistic and creative expression?
Number one, it's like the way that I'm able to speak truth to power and be seen and heard. And definitely, like, that also enables me to impact like decision making
Mhm.
in spaces in rooms where I don't think my 6-year-old self would have believed that I could actually be in. Um, it also gives me freedom and mobility, um, which I know is a privilege, to be able to, travel and connect with so many different people and communities across cultures, uh, is amazing. Um, it also seeds my purpose. It gives me the medicine, that I need to embrace all the layers of my intersectionalities of identities. Um, and at the same time, holding compassion, for the continual healing and growth that I still have to do, that we all have to do, right? And yeah, and that's all really important to me, because when you become more self-aware of who you are and become more accepting of all your parts and see all of those parts as the whole, um, it allows you to then um, reach out for collaboration and co-creation with others and in relation to the land. Um, and I mean, my creativepreneurship practice is really guided by my overstanding and understandings of how important it is for me to exist, because my experience within these identities enables me to really push forward this idea of re-indigenizing art for transformative change, and really being that creative energy which lives in all of us and is interdependent within all of creation itself. And so I like it is who I am. And I feel like as you get older, definitely, um, you really don't have to I don't feel the urge any longer to have to um, almost like perform, if you would, these identities. Like it's just natural, it's like, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is, what I'm grounded in, and just allow it to organically, in an authentic way, move through you and into whatever it is that you are presenting to the world. And that's that feels like freedom to me, but it's taken a very long time, right, to get to this place. And I said I'm growing and
Yeah,
transitioning.
the journey continues.
Yeah, exactly.
But it sounds like you're really firmly rooted also just in like where you're going, but where you came from. And I want to just talk a little bit about where you grew up. So I know in 2018 you headlined as one of the feature artists for the first ever Nuit Blanche in Scarborough. And then the following year you were one of the queens and kings of Scarborough, along with Cardinal Official and Lily Singh. So how did growing up in Scarborough influence your purpose and path? Because I've met a lot of amazing creative people coming out of that area. So tell me a little about that.
First of all, I want to big up Mark Studdard and Ashley Mackenzie Barnes, who actually were pivotal in that Queens and Kings of Scarborough, which was like, the last Nuit Blanche before.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's coming up.
Um, so I want to give them props for including me in that. But yeah, definitely, like, everyone who knows Mahlikah Awe knows I always big up Scarborough, or what we know as Scartown. I big up Scartown wherever I go, doesn't matter where I am. Scarborough to me gave me my urban litty attitude. So I carry that with me wherever I go. And, my parents were both very rural people,
Mm-hmm.
kind of from their respective upbringings in the different parts of the world in which they came from. And I was really raised in a household that was culturally Black Scotian, Black Canadian, and Afro Indigenous. And, you know, coming up in Scarborough really meant that you had a unique identity, which was part of a fabric of unique identities. Because, I mean, really, Scarborough represented like, this fabric of Black Caribbean diaspora and Africa, along with like India and China
Mm-hmm.
and Sri Lanka and the Philippines and Greece
Mm-hmm.
and Italy,
Yeah.
um, to name a few. So you had like all of these different, very distinct um, cultures all coexisting across these different um, areas in this borough.
Mm-hmm.
And it really did ground me in learning how to walk in different worlds. So that I had an appreciation for cultural diversity. I always had an appreciation for respecting people's uniqueness, um, and also an appreciation for the ways that we can find commonalities across
Mm-hmm.
culture. And so that allowed me to be able to carry, an urban and a rural identity, a Black and a Ganyangahaga and Mi'kmaq identity, an urban Indian identity, and a traditional identity, and a hip hop identity, because even hip hop culture, I found hip hop culture in Scarborough. That's where I
Mm-hmm.
do it. And we know like big MCs came out of Scarborough. If you know your hip hop history, Maestro Fresh West went to my high school, right?
That's amazing.
Um, and we had folks like, Cardinal Official,
Yeah.
obviously, there, Socrates, like these are all Scarborough heads, Danny O. So like, Scarborough just had something like other regions did too, but we had our thing. It was always popping out here. And,
Are you still in Scarborough?
no, and that's why I know my Scartown folks cry every time they see me.
No.
I live in the West End. I feel like in some ways I've betrayed my roots in that sense. But things happen, and you go where you need to
Of
go or
course.
need to do. But I mean, anytime I get back up there to do anything, I'm there. Like somebody from Scarborough says, "Yo, we're doing this." I'm like, "Okay, let me see how I can make this work." Just because it's just a vibe, and
Mhm.
definitely Scarborough is so much of who I, the way I slang, my whole. I mean, even I'm in the West End. People from the West End know I'm from Scarborough. Like
Yeah. You're making it known.
I don't have to tell them. They're like,
Right.
Scarborough, right? Because it's just a certain vibe, right? So yeah, definitely all those beautiful things informed who I am today, for sure.
Yeah. And like you're saying, there's such a rich diversity there, and just so much has come out of it. And I feel like it's not always totally like people talk about Toronto, but so much of what we think of as like Toronto arts and culture is coming from Scarborough, for sure.
Oh yeah, it's coming from everywhere else. It's coming from Scarborough. It's coming from Etobicoke. It's coming
Yeah.
from Main and Finch. Like, yeah.
It's not coming from King in front,
No,
usually.
not.
Not so much. Maybe could you tell me a little bit about, you've spoken about Afro Indigenous futurism as a driving force in your work. Could you maybe tell us just a little bit, for people that don't know, what this is and how it influences your work?
Okay, well, yeah, I'm definitely a part of, I guess, like the Afrofuturism and Indigenous futurism um, speculative arts movement here in Toronto, as a digital artist as well as a writer and performer. And so a lot of that work has a lens of futurism. And so because I'm both Black and Ongwe Onwe and Unnu, so Black and Indigenous, I really immerse myself in the art and the film and the literature of that futurism from both Indigenous and Black folks. Um, and a lot of it is also rooted in the teachings and the stories and the knowledges, that have been passed down from my lineage. And so knowing those stories that are always, especially creation stories and stories that have to do with the land and how different relatives came to be, whether it's the waters, whether it's the celestial bodies in the universe, the plant relatives, all of these other relatives that we have, those stories, those pictographs, those you know um, ancient um, documenting ways of expressing um, the way our ancestors essentially were already envisioning our future for us. And so that's why often you'll hear, Black and Indigenous folks talk about us being our ancestors' wildest dreams. They've been
Mhm.
dreaming our future, and that dreaming has to continue with each generation. And right now, of course, a lot of the dreaming and the envisioning that I'm doing is really rooted in abolition. It's really rooted in, again, tearing down these systems which held my ancestors in enslavement, which stole my ancestors' homelands and put them on reserves and continue to exploit the natural resources of these lands, and are starting to exploit the resources of Galun Hayage, the place in the sky, the universe. And so it really is about, you know, honoring that notion that someone dreamed me into existence. And so I have to continue, um, excuse me, I have to continue that imagining.
Mhm. It's interesting that it's this idea of futurism and looking forward, but that it's so deeply connected to the past. That it's sort
Well,
of like this tying together of like,
I mean, that is, again, the Indigenous ways of knowing, being, and doing are really rooted in the notion of looking 7 generations into the past and 7 generations into the future in order to be able to be present for today. Because every moment we are actually creating a future. The future is now. I know, a lot of teachings coming from, the African continent around Sankofa, and it's the same principle. Um,
mhm.
have to know your past in order to inform your future. And so I think that that is interwoven into the DNA of our people. And if we're talking about land back, if we're talking about Black liberation, all of these things are actually the futures in which we are meant to make happen now, because our descendants are waiting and watching. So, in the same way that I was waiting and watching when my ancestors were here, now I have descendants doing the same thing for me. And someday I'm going to be a future ancestor. So I need to get it together. It's
I
like,
love it.
yeah,
I love this way of viewing like time and generations as sort of like coexisting at the same time throughout time. It's
yeah, because
pretty,
time is not
pretty
linear.
like for me. Yeah.
Time is not linear.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's that opportunity is always there to make your future now. You don't have to wait. Do it now. So, yeah, that's what excites me about futurism, for sure. It really does drive a lot of my work, and both creatively, but also in terms of transformative justice, right?
Tell me a little bit about some of your work right now. You have a role at the Art Gallery of Ontario and the Centre of Learning and Development. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing there and why these roles are so significant for you?
Well, at the AGO, so the Art Gallery of Ontario, I've been
Mhm.
like creating with the AGO as an artist in residence, an arts educator for about 6 years. But in 2020, I actually was I formally joined the AGO as part of their virtual schools program, and being a part of that arts education team. And that was something that was necessary because, again, the pandemic hit and
Yeah.
programming had to pivot to virtual tours. And so it was really amazing to be brought on essentially as the lead for Indigenous art and artists tours for kindergarten to grade 12. And because it was virtual, I was seeing thousands of people
Wow.
per week, because we had people coming from all over the world. So it wasn't
Mhm.
just localized in Ontario. We had folks from the US, the UK, India, China, Australia, even with time zones. I'm like, how are you doing this? Um, they were so hyped. And I know it is a major, it's a major, happening, because the idea of an Afro Indigenous person having this role really gives an opportunity to engage, in knowledge sharing, not only from an Indigenous lens, but to show that indigeneity is diverse, that we are not a
Mhm.
monolith, and that being Indigenous can look many different ways. And that gets really reaffirmed when you have, attendees who then see you, and then they see, oh, someone that they can actually identify with. And I think that's really important, especially for young people. And so it's great. And I mean, and I'm genuinely loving it because it gives me an opportunity to also learn more about, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, artists and artwork, and really, promote those messages that the artists are trying to convey in their work when we're talking about being in relation to the land, being in relation to each other, and especially for the young people, how they're going to take on more active roles in
Mhm.
terms of stewardship on these lands, that they call home. And so it's been great.
Yeah,
And
like
I,
what's it like? You're speaking to all of these people, like you're communicating all of this like very, important and like sometimes personal stuff. Like how was the experience of just talking to thousands of people around the world? and having that role with the AGO.
It's just, I mean, it's just, I think, to be honest, I think I'm a natural because of my performative background. So
Mhm,
uh,
mhm.
being able to connect with an audience comes naturally to me. But I think what was really cool was the fact that, you know, you had all these people engaging with me and asking questions and learning about these artists. Many places had never seen artwork by Indigenous artists from, you know, what we now call North America. I mean, and so it's really extending that platform, but then at the same time, it's the little things where you do an art activity that's inspired by a theme within an artist's artwork, and then, you know, all of these young people and their teachers are posting the artwork that they're doing on Twitter, and they're tagging you in it, and you're seeing now how they're applying the knowledge through creative skills. And to me, that is huge. And so I know there's a lot of educators out there. I mean, I got a huge fan base now from
Nice.
those tours. And so I just want to let folks know that I will be back. We should be starting up again in October. So definitely, if you are an educator out there and you want to join a tour, check out the Art Gallery of Ontario's website so that you can see how to book that. And of course, those tours are free. You can do a custom tour, and I believe there's a cost for that. But for the school's programming, there is no cost involved right now. So it's a great opportunity to engage with art and artists, and a live, you know, tour guide who's also Indigenous providing you that tour. So that's been amazing. And then with CLND, of course, is the Center of Learning and Development. They are based physically in Regent Park in Tikarondo in
Mhm.
Toronto. And essentially, my role with them is that of a director. So I have a directorship role there, and my role is basically really ensuring that all the programming is speaking to, you know, the needs of the neighborhoods, you know, that we serve, and really building in a lot of capacity around experiential learning um,
Mhm.
and leadership, and especially for newcomer and immigrant folks. And what I love most about the work that I do there is, again, I'm able to bring my whole self into the work. So I'm able to actually, like, you know, share my perspectives from an Afro Indigenous lens in terms of the training and the curriculum development that we deliver, and really also empowering, you know, femme identified participants in their leadership development, especially when it comes to community engagement, and really providing, you know, insights and mentorship and tools so that they can be effective in the types of way they want to engage with residents in their community, develop programming, and et cetera, et cetera. So we have, you know, the Immigrant Women's Integration Program, which
Mhm.
is program for immigrant women. We have the academic upgrading program, which is really literacy based. And then we have some social enterprises, the Regent Park Catering Collective and the Regent Park Sewing Studio. So really finding different ways to tap into local residents' capacity to be leaders, to build their own sustainability through social entrepreneurship, and as well as enhance all of those, you know, hard and soft skills that we need to, you know, do the things that we want to do in life. And so I think it's significant because, again, you know, um, being femme, first of all, and being a director is a huge deal,
Mhm.
and racialized. And so, just being able again to go into spaces to advocate for community members, whether it's with funders, whether it's with other stakeholders, is significant, and ensuring that, we are delivering amazing programming. So definitely, you should check out the Toronto Center for Learning and Development. They're on IG. They've got tons of programs.
Is it
And
just for people living in that neighborhood, or does it extend beyond? Is the programming just for Regent Park, or can other people come?
yeah, so the main catchment area is Regent Park, St. Jamestown, and Moss Park.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
the programming does involve people in the greater Toronto area. Like the Immigrant Women's Integration Program, for example, is a 9-month leadership program, which also includes a placement in the social service sector, and it's virtual.
Okay.
So, we, as an organization, we've also pivoted to virtual training. Academic upgrading is also virtual right now. So there's ways in which you can get involved even if you are not in Regent Park.
Hmm. I mean, it sounds like there's something for everyone of all ages and like all backgrounds, but maybe can you tell me a little bit? I'm interested in your work with younger audience members or younger members of the community because um, as an educator, like definitely you're going to be reaching sort of youth. Can you tell me a little bit about why that is important to you, and maybe if there's a specific example or a story you could tell us about interacting with a younger member of the community?
Um, so, like, for the most part, like anyone who's invested in arts education, you don't really know the full impact of what you've done for a youth um, or a child immediately. It's
Yeah.
like you either maybe you get some feedback after the engagement, or maybe it occurs days after, weeks after, months after, even years after.
Hmm.
So obviously that I inspire young people and children in the work that I do by the way they react to performances, or when I'm involved in like more structured mentorship programming, whether it's with the school boards, the arts councils, or other projects that people have me come into. As a slam poetry coach, of course, when you're coaching a whole team of like emerging poets, you're seeing
Hmm.
on a regular basis their growth, and then when they get out there and they start performing those pieces, you know that you've done essentially what you were supposed to do, because the confidence is there now and they're really coming into their own. But I really feel like um, it's about showing up, it's about being present, um, it's about sharing knowledge. Uh,
Hmm.
in this way, like, eventually we all need to become um, knowledge givers, because knowledge is not meant to be hoarded, it is meant to be shared. And so we have to invest right into the next generation. That's part of our responsibility, and guide them into good ways of knowing, being, and doing, while allowing them um, to cultivate their own ways of knowing, being, and doing. So it's that balance there. But I think an example I can give is, there are so many, to be honest,
Okay.
but I had opportunity back in, like, I'd say this was 2015-ish, to do some work on Anishinaabe and Lenape, Munsee, Delaware, traditional territory of what we now call Chatham, Ontario. And I was there working with some grade 5 and 6 classes. And after my first session with this one particular class, so we're finished the session. I'm packing up, you know, because I've got a quick break, and then I got to move to another classroom in the same school. And I mean, this is a township, you know, Chatham, Kent, that not only has Indigenous roots, but also very long history of Black Canadian settlements, right?
Yeah.
Including the Underground Railroad is connected to Chatham. So it has a wealth of that history. And so I had this youth, like I was packing up whatever, this young guy, and he says, before you go, there's something I have to tell you. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And he's like, I'm Black and Native too. And I was just like, word. And he's just like, yeah, you know, my mom is Mi'kmaq, and my dad's Black. And I was just like, so awesome. And you know, I said, I didn't want to rush the conversation. I felt like the youth had more to say. So I text the teacher that I would be seeing next, and I just said, I'm going to be probably about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a little bit late. I'm having a conversation with one of the students in the class that I'm currently with. And so I allowed this youth to have some time to just like talk. So excited. Like it's like I've never seen another Black and Native person before.
Wow.
Side of my own family, and who's like an artist and who like is doing all these things. I'm in shock. So and
That's pretty wonderful.
part of my like arts education career. So it was it also, not only did this young person receive incredible validation, but I also received incredible validation that, yeah, you really are doing what you're meant to do, and that this is one of the reasons why. So yeah, that's one of those stories.
That is beautiful. And just like imagining this kid's like joy, and yeah, and exactly how it would also bring that same affirmation to you, you know?
Exactly. Amazing.
Yeah. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about, I know that your Red Slam is on hiatus, your collective, after over a decade of community arts engagements, recordings, and live performances, and so much work all over the place. Maybe I know it's not happening now, but if you could just tell us a little bit about that work, and maybe about a particularly memorable moment from that time and from that work.
Wow. Well, I mean, like you said, we've been around for a minute. And that's why as soon as the pandemic hit, we actually decided to take a break because we haven't had one.
Yeah.
And so I think in a way it was a good divine intervention. We were literally just starting to work on a new recording project. So we had been doing some studio recordings just before. And then we just decided we all needed a break. We didn't realize how exhausted we were until we actually had to break. But, you know, as a collective, the collective, of course, the beautiful thing about Red Slam is it's not one of those collectives where you have to be in Red Slam for the rest of eternity. It's kind of like people meander in and out of the collective based on the projects in which we are working on. So there's definitely like core members, but we're also so involved in our own artistic and community work that we recognize that there has to be fluidity. And really are trying to maintain that indigenous way of knowing and being and doing, which is like, you know, fluidity. And but as a collective, we are a movement. And so the movement is really based on art for social change, from an indigenous lens, and indigeneity being not just from what we now call Turtle Island, but globally. So we have collective members who represent indigeneity from different continents, not just what we now know as America. But yeah, I mean, over the years, we've had some incredible performances. It is hard just to choose one. So I'm just going to like point out a couple. So in 2010, I think one of our biggest first shows was actually at Imaginative Film Festival. And open for Martha Redbone. And this was a big deal because Martha Redbone, of course, is an Afro Indigenous, you know, musician from south of the Medicine Line, so what we now know as the US, and someone who my mom was like totally into. And so I had listened to her music before this happened. And so we actually got a chance to meet her before the show. And for the first time in my life, and the crew remembers this, I couldn't talk. I was like, oh my God, I'm like sitting with Martha Redbone, like, oh my God, what is happening? And when she turned and asked me something, I couldn't even talk. I was just like,
for the first time at loss for words.
Really like fangirling and just being like, oh my God, what's happening? And it was incredible. And then what was really outstanding was like, she came to us before we went on, and she said, the last number that I'm going to do, I'm going to call y'all on stage. Because apparently she watched our tech run. She watched our tech run and thought we were incredible. So she's like, I'm going to call you on stage, so just be ready. And I'm like, what? Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And this is why I'm so glad I came up from Scarborough, because I knew how to freestyle. Like, I have no fear of like improvising on the microphone. So sure, she called us out, and all the dudes, this was the hilarious part, all these dude MCs in the crew were chicken. Like, what? So it ended up being two females, myself.
That's perfect.
And Lena Recollet, who ended up going up there. And when it was my turn, she was like, basically, and I just spit bars. And I was like, because that's what you do.
Wow.
So that was huge. And that was right at the beginning. Like, literally, we had only been formally together for less than a year. And so
that must have felt really, really good.
It was good. And again, there's been so many others, like Gathering of Nations Powwow in New Mexico. Like, that was that was the first time we traveled together to what we now call the US. Idle No More, the March to Ottawa in 2012, and then doing the concert afterwards. Opening for Tanya Tagaq in 2015. Toronto was amazing. And then, of course, the 2017 Nuit Blanche, Monument to the Centuries of Revolutions at Nathan Phillips Square, where we essentially were the headliners. We performed at Nathan Phillips Square on the big stage, and then throughout the night, we had over like 3,000 people coming to our section of the square to jam out with Red Slam. And we didn't rehearse the numbers for the jam. We literally were jamming. So everything was improvised. People were coming on stage and like jamming with us, other artists. It was like incredible. I still feel like that was the most incredible like thing that we have ever done, because it was completely not scripted. but we were able to hold a whole night into a
Yeah.
day, jamming out with people that we don't
Well,
know.
don't you know, I like that improvisation is such a power. It's like there's something very, very special about improvised art.
Oh my
That
God.
it's like because it's really like you are like living in that moment because you're having to like react to everything. I know that you did you collaborate with Carmen Romero?
Yes, I recently
So,
did a really nice collaboration through Jamie or Jamming
mhm.
Esplanade. They did this incredible program called Duets, where they paired two different artists of different disciplines who have never worked together before.
Mhm.
And literally,
It really worked well though, man. I watched it. It was
literally,
very powerful.
oh my God, that was really something else because literally we had like a couple of hours together to make magic.
But I know that's her jam is improvisation as a dancer because I know her well and that's her thing. And it seems like it's your thing too, so
Yeah,
it was a good match.
it was beautiful. It was really good synergy. If people can see that video on YouTube.
Hmm. I
So
highly recommend it.
yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I love to jam. People know that. Freestyle jam, I'm in it. I'm in it.
So what are like looking forward, what's happening with you? What does the future hold? What are you involved with right now?
Well, again, the future is now. So,
True.
post, first and foremost, I'm just reminding myself to be present every day, cultivate joy, make time for rest, and be extremely grateful for everything that is coming my way. So, one of the biggest projects of the end of this year for September, of course, which is happening all across Ticarando, is the Artworks TO Year of Public Art. So, if
Mhm.
folks know, this is the year of public art, although to me every year is, but this is a year of public art. 2021, 2020, 2022. And so I'm involved in a project that's being curated by Paulina O'Keefe Anthony. It's in Scarborough, so I'm coming. It's called Stories in the Rouge Valley. It is a
Okay.
multidisciplinary artistic walking tour, which will feature artistic presentations from Indigenous artists like myself, Jennifer Alicia, and Glama. And so essentially, there will be tours happening on September 25th and 26th. So we're there both days on the weekend. It's a Saturday, Sunday. And essentially, each of us are expressing our relationship to the land. And so we'll be seeing groups of 20 people over the course of different time blocks. So 11 a.m. is the first tour, second tour is 12 p.m. Then we have a
Wow.
break, one, and then we're back at like 2 and 3 and 4. So essentially, we'll probably be seeing, 100 or 200 people each of those days. And I can't wait to share my presentation. It's futurism. It's something I've not performed before. It is a piece that I worked on during the pandemic. And so it will be the first time I will be presenting an excerpt from this as part
Wow.
of this particular performance. So definitely stay tuned for promo, when everything is going to be launching, I guess, pretty much in the next week or so. So look for that. I'm
Where
also
do
doing
people find you? Sorry, where do people find you online? Like if they want to look for that.
uh, where we are right now on Instagram.
Perfect.
So yeah, that's my social media place, landing
Perfect.
place. The last one I'll shout out is Wellbeing Collective. They are doing a partnership with Heart House of the University of
Okay.
Toronto. And so they've invited me along with some other incredible wellness practitioners who are Indigenous and Black and Afro Indigenous as part of a series called I Am My Ancestors' Healing, Reclaiming Liberation and Sovereignty. So basically, we're going to be doing a series of takeovers in different mediums on different social platforms. I myself will be probably doing stuff on IG, so look for that. It will be running September 22nd to October 22nd. So again, I'll definitely let folks know when my stuff is happening, but I'll be contributing some stuff again around connecting, you know, all of that astrological medicine with our daily routines. So our mindfulness stuff. So I can't wait to do that. And of course, moon medicine and ritual awareness. If you are not following me, and my live series, which happens on for every new moon and every full moon, where I give you the goods in terms of like the teachings for that particular moon and the moon month, as well as engage in some ritual awareness where we get to do some practical stuff together. And so the next one is coming up. We have a new corn moon in Virgo happening on Monday, September the 6th. So
oh, really?
yes, and so
that's very soon.
That is very soon. So that's the next time I'll be doing an IG live for moon medicine. So hopefully you'll join me and get all that magical medicine that you need. So yeah.
Yeah, your IG lives are wonderful. I watched a bunch of them in preparation for this interview, and I really enjoyed myself.
I'll go.
Before we go, I was wondering if you could share a little bit of your work, of something you're working on or something that you've already created, anything that you might be willing to share with our audience would be wonderful.
So I thought about this, and again, while we are into harvest season and we're going to be experiencing a lot of abundance, we know for a fact that a lot of our water protectors are in peril right now in different parts of the lands, trans mountain, you know, pipeline, the tiny warriors, you know, tiny house warriors. We've got, you know, line 3 pipeline, you know, folks, and, you know, Fairy Creek out west. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. We've got Mi'kmaq fishermen as young as 13 who are being arrested right now just by practice their inherent rights to the land. So I thought about Wade because that's the piece for me that really speaks to that. I'm wading. I am waiting, anticipating your response to this. How deep is your level of sea overstanding? You are scaling. You are scaling the scales and interfering with the balance. A balance which refracts light and projects fishtail stories, teachings, prayers, songs. Generation after generation after generation, we swim. We swim purposely on a journey more ancient than canoe. What is your purpose? Because we all need a purpose. Whether freshwater, saltwater, upstream, downstream, we all need a purpose. They are gutting her. They are gutting her. They are gutting the sea from the inside out. When you debone one cycle of life, you debone your very own existence. Skeletal fragments of colonial repression you wash. You wash your will of lake superiority upon guild ones based on theories of natural selection. But there's nothing natural about the Darwinism, schism, isms, which are currently causing a temporal undercurrent, which is a currency flow, which is flowing from sea to shining sea. You see, they seek to net profits. They seek to net profits. They seek to net false prophets, casting line after lie after lie of false promises of ecological responsibility. They have us fooled hook, line, and sinker, and we are sinking. We are sinking. We are drowning because we've been baited to believe that the madness will stop. But you fail. You fail to recognize that for our people, these streams run deep. These streams run rapid. These streams are the blood streams of our ancestry. That's why we babble to brooks and we pay tributaries and we channel through the channelways and waterways of our lives. We swim purposely while corporations float adrift aimlessly on a sea of confusion. But for our people, fish is not just food. It is spiritual sustenance and political restitution. That's why it's embalmed and emblazed in our totems, our tattoos, and our regalia and our spirit guides. And when our elders cry, there's only one more river to cross. We know it's time to cross over to the other side, the horizon, where the 7 elders sit to regain, to reclaim our genesis, our genius of creation, nautical navigations. We swim purposely in order to regain and return to that destiny of our rightful place within the circle of life. Water is life. Onega notes, Onega notes. Water is life stream of consciousness from spirit to flesh, a pact between her and us. The ultimate task to serve and protect is water keeper's quest. Mercury in her blood soon she'll be laid to rest like dewdrops with its melodic motions. We must change and grow before joining her ocean. She is the life giver, the healer of the people, but greed is making her sick. The devastation unreal. I told you my people are praying because corporations be floating on that sea of confusion. So they're praying for her relief and her restitution. When her defenses break, like the great spirit drum, when the big thunder comes, will you ride or run? What is your purpose? Because we all need a purpose, whether freshwater, saltwater, upstream, downstream, we all need a purpose. What is your purpose?
That is incredible. You are amazing. I don't even know how you do that. Wow. Really, what a gift.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and for honoring us with the story of your life and of your work, and really that performance is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to so I just have a question on the tour that you're doing this you're going to be like performing, or is it going to be mostly like performance, or is it going to be, can you tell us just a little more about it, because I want to come see it now? And
So essentially, the people will be touring the Rouge Valley. So they'll be in the valley. There'll be specific stops on the tour. And so the three artists, myself, Glamour, and Jen, we are at different spots. I know I'm at the last spot. So I'm at like Eagle Vista, the Eagle Vista.
okay.
And so when you come to me, basically, I'm going to be doing a performance piece. It's not going to be a slam poetry. It's literally like more futurism, performative, which will include some song, but me speaking in character.
Oh, beautiful.
So this is a piece where I'm essentially speaking from Oseagoa, Black Willow. So I'm embodying this spirit of the Black Willow tree, and I'm sharing my journey as a Black Willow tree from seedling or sapling to where I am now, and how that connects to our relationship to the land and to each other. So, yeah.
Fantastic. That sounds amazing. Well, I want to say thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us here today. We really appreciate it. And for anyone that is interested in learning more about your work, they can look for you on Instagram, I guess, and look for like notices about stuff that's coming up.
For sure. You can follow me on Instagram. You can also, check out some of Red Slam's music on Bandcamp. So if you're into that kind of stuff, and also on YouTube, I have a playlist of performances within the Red Slam YouTube channel. Just put Mahlikah Awe's playlist and you'll see some of my performances.
Yeah, we highly recommend that everybody does that, as you've just been given just a tiny little taste.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. We're going to be back next Thursday with to be determined guests at 2 p.m. And thank you so much for joining us this week for Curtain Call. Have a wonderful day. See you later.
I'll see you again.